Good morning to you on this first Sunday of May in the year we call 2020. It's a beautiful day and a wonderful opportunity to share this time of worship. We're thankful to many people who are participating on many levels, to Gwen Williams for the children's time, and to Karen and Kathy for the music, and to Roy for his sharing in the announcements and prayers and scripture reading. I'm thankful to Bob Ingram again for all the work he's doing, making the audiovisual part of this work possible. Just a heads up, Bob is making some special CDs of these services that he's making available to us, and they're out there on a weekly basis under the pavilion behind the church, and hope you'll take advantage of those. I think Roy might have mentioned that, but I just wanted to emphasize it to you this morning. Okay, on this first Sunday of May, in this season of Easter, we're on the fourth week, and Roy read you a really special text this morning. It's Jesus speaking of himself as the Good Shepherd, and there's all sorts of things that we can take off on, him being the gatekeeper, and there being some threats out there, and so forth. But the part of this passage that really resonated with me this year was Jesus' repeated reference to the fact that his flock knows his voice. Now, I know that we don't really resonate too much with the idea of a flock anymore. Not too many of us have an agrarian lifestyle. We don't know how sheep are. We don't know what shepherds do. And if it helps you any, you can think of it as God's people hear his voice. The people of Jesus hear his voice, and they know his voice, and they follow him because they recognize his voice. It's a voice that, well, I've got to go back to the shepherd thing. The sheep would have recognized because when the time was right, that voice would have been very soothing to them when they were nervous or upset or challenged or just concerned about whatever reality, maybe a storm in the world or a disease in the flock, or they would have heard the shepherd's voice and would have been calmed. They might have heard his voice threatening off predators, those who would attack them, those who would afflict them or hurt them, and so they'd come to recognize the shepherd's voice as being the voice that they needed to hear for the circumstances that they faced in their lives. The people of God have that same reality. We hear the voice of Jesus in the way that's appropriate to our circumstance. Sometimes it's a challenging voice that tells us to get up off our rears and get moving and live out the faith that we've been given. And sometimes it's a calming and soothing voice that comes to us when our stress level is high and our worries are great and our realities are uncertain, and that voice has something special to say to us then. So it's very important that we hear the voice of Jesus, hear the voice of the Good Shepherd, and understand that it speaks to us in the way that we need to hear whatever we're facing. There's some other things about this voice, though. I kind of titled this sermon after a television show that I've never watched. So if I speak to you out of ignorance, that's really nothing new, as you know, but it struck me, as I understand it, it's sort of a talent show, a competition where people come together, they're judged by the quality of their voice, and through a process of elimination at the end of the program, a certain voice that is distinguishable, that's special, that stands out is selected. If that's true for a television program that is here today and gone tomorrow, how much more significant is it to us that we hear a voice that's special and significant and that stands out, but not in a way that goes away when you click the remote, that stays with you throughout eternity. We need to learn that to hear this voice well, we have to hear it frequently. People who hear a particular voice a lot come to recognize it anywhere. I suspect that David Barr, who isn't sitting here today, but would normally be over here in the corner, can recognize Alison Krause's voice anytime he hears it, anywhere, in any circumstance, because he listens to it so regularly, so frequently, so faithfully. On the other extreme, Larry Weathers over there, he would probably have the same feeling for Bill Monroe. The sort of music that he listens to, the voice that he sings, and the style that he has, and Larry would recognize his voice, and maybe back there Terrence Brown, if it were Pavarotti or Leontine Price or someone who sings that style of music, Terrence would recognize them instantly. For me, it's Levon Helm. I can recognize Levon's voice anywhere, anytime, because I've listened to it so repeatedly and so frequently and so faithfully for so long. Same is true for the Good Shepherd. You know, it's important that we listen to his voice frequently because he speaks a language that's different from what we're used to. Oh, I know Jesus can speak English, I guess, or French, or Russian, or Chinese, or Spanish. Maybe he speaks all of them at the same time. But he also speaks in the song of the bird and the caress of the wind, and in that sound that comes from our hearts sometimes, that is so special and so changing and so dramatic. One of the things that we learn from being frequent hearers of the Good Shepherd is that he speaks to us in the ways that are appropriate for that occasion, through the means that are unlimited to him. And we need to learn to listen on the level that he speaks. Might have to adjust the volume a little bit. And might have to turn it up, or you might have to turn it down. But in whatever way the Good Shepherd speaks to us, when we listen to him frequently, we come to know that voice and value it above all things. Another thing that really strikes me about the voice is that we come, after we've listened to it faithfully enough and long enough, we recognize how it is that it affects us. The other scripture reading for this morning was the 23rd Psalm. It's frequently referred to as the Shepherd Psalm. And as you know, it begins with a voice saying, "The Lord is my shepherd, and he takes care of me, and he leads me into quiet places, and he restores me when I'm hurting or lost, and he protects me in the presence of my enemies, and he gives me the good things that I need, and he does it with grace and mercy and generosity, and we can go into the place of the greatest darkness, knowing always that there's a great light to be had on the other side. Our cups run over because we know that goodness and mercy follow us all the days of our lives, because we dwell in the place where the Good Shepherd speaks. Here's some good news. There's no place where the Good Shepherd does not speak. I was reading a book, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and it told about these two astrophysicists, and they were working with some radio telescopes in New Jersey, I think. Radio telescopes are amazing things. They can measure distances on a scale that we can't imagine, and a spectrum of light and sound that's broader than anything that we knew was there. And they were trying to fine-tune this telescope for a particular purpose, but they were having problems because there was this persistent background noise that just wouldn't go away. And these two astrophysicists, I can almost see them doing it. They would climb into this enormous radio telescope, and with something sophisticated like duct tape, they would cover all the seams, and they would grind all the uneven places and try to get things just perfect. They would even take buckets of water and scrub out the bird poop, thinking that might be causing part of the problem. And all of a sudden it dawned on them that what they were hearing, what they were calling background noise, what had been so upsetting to them, was an echo from that explosive moment when the universe was created. And the more they listened, and the more they understood, and the more they studied, and the more they conferred with other people who were hearing the noise, they realized that this sound was always there, coming from every direction, at every moment, so long as the universe exists. Maybe that's the good news of the risen Lord today, the good news from the Good Shepherd today, that there's nowhere we'll go and nothing we'll face. There's no time in our life when the Good Shepherd isn't speaking to us, giving us that message that we need and the way that we need it to bring us to the place that he would have us. On this first Sunday of May in the year we call 2020, on this fourth Sunday of Easter, when we're living the resurrection life, maybe we be especially tuned in these challenging times to the voice of the Good Shepherd, because his people recognize it and they follow him. Peace be with you as you continue your journey to the place that Jesus would have you go.